I actually started doing what I was doing when I was 10 years old. I spent the summer swimming with a family of beavers. This is in eastern Canada. And I had a great time. It was wonderful. And the next summer when I went back, the beavers were gone. I couldn't find them anymore. And when I asked, questions, where are the beavers? And I was told the trappers had come in during the winter and they had killed them all, took them all out. And that made me very angry. As a young boy, I was very angry. And that winter, I began to walk the trap lines and to free animals from the trap and to destroy the traps. So I became an activist at the age of 11 from destroying those traps. And then when I was 18, I became the youngest founding member of the Greenpeace Foundation on that. But in 1975, when I was with Greenpeace, I was the first mate on the first voyage to protect whales. And that was an experience that had a profound impact on my life because we had come up with this idea to protect whales by placing our bodies between the harpoon and the whales. We were reading a lot of Gandhi at the time and felt, well, this is going to work. But that didn't impress the Russians much. I mean, we stopped them for 20 minutes and then they fired the harpoon over our head and struck one of the whales, and she screamed and rolled on her side, blood everywhere. And then suddenly the largest whale in the pod came out, slapped the water with his tail and disappeared. And he swam right underneath of us and threw himself up at the bow of the Soviet vessel. And they were ready for him and hit him with another harpoon and point blank range. And he fell back in agony and blood everywhere and rolling and thrashing about. And that's when I caught his eye. And he saw me, I saw him, he dove, and I saw a trail of bloody bubbles coming real fast towards our little small boat. And he came up and out of the water like this to come down on top of us. And as his head came up out of the water and I looked into his eye, and what I saw there is what really changed my life, because what I saw was understanding, that the whale understood what we were trying to do, because I could see the effort he made, and he pulled himself back, and then he sank back into the sea. I saw his eye disappear beneath the surface, and he died. So he could have killed me. There's two of us in the boat, Fred East and I. Could have killed us, but he chose not to do that. And therefore, I owe my life to that particular whale. But while I was sitting there in the middle of the Russian whaling fleet in the Pacific Ocean, and surrounded by all these boats, and the sun was going down, and I said to myself, why are they killing these whales? They don't eat them. Sperm whales, cachalot, they can't eat them. They kill them for oil, for high heat-resistant lubricating oil for machinery. And one of the things they were very much in demand for was in the use of the construction and manufacture of intercontinental ballistic missiles. So I said to myself, here we are destroying this incredibly intelligent, socially complex, beautiful, wondrous creature for the purpose of making a weapon meant for the mass extermination of human beings. And that's when it struck me. We, as a species, are insane. We're ecologically insane. This makes no sense at all. But from that moment on, I said, I'm here to serve the whales and the fish and the other creatures. I'm not here for people, and that's what I've done ever since. They're my clients. So when people say, well, I disagree with what you did to protect the whales, I said, well, find me a whale that disagreed with it, because I don't really care what your opinion is. Well, I felt that there was a need to go beyond what Greenpeace was doing, because their whole thing is bearing witness. We bear witness to this atrocity, and it's a Quaker philosophy, and to me it's a bit of a cowardly sort of thing. It's very submissive, like, please, please, please don't kill those whales, but they do it anyway, and you just take pictures. I mean, that really was very frustrating to me, so I decided that we had to go beyond that, and therefore I set up Sea Shepherd as an interventionist organization to practice what I call aggressive nonviolence, keeping in mind that we're not to cause injury to anybody, but at the same time that we have to be aggressive against what they're doing. And we've done that for 39 years, and we've done it very successfully. We've not injured a single person, but we've certainly shut down a lot of illegal operations. Children are very intuitive beings. They naturally understand the natural world in ways that adults have long forgotten. And I think the real problem is that we try to use our educational system to stifle their intuition, to stifle their imagination, and also to stifle their courage. And when people say, what do we teach our children, I usually respond by saying, nothing. Let's listen to them. encourage their ideas, encourage their imagination, encourage their intuition, and stop trying to tell them how the world should be, and listen to how they perceive the world to be, and encourage them to go along that path. What we've always done is intervene against illegal activities. We do act under the guidance of the United Nations World Charter for Nature, which was ratified by the UN General Assembly in 1982. And within it, it says on the section on implementations that every individual non-government organization or nation state is empowered to uphold international conservation law. So individuals can intervene according to the UN World Charter for Nature. And I've actually used that successfully in court in Canada in 1993 when we stopped overfishing on the Grand Banks of off of Newfoundland, and Canadian government arrested me for that. I was charged with counts of mischief for interfering with these foreign illegal operations. And I said that we were acting under the guidance of the UN World Charter for Nature. Well, the Canadian government brought in a law professor from Toronto to say, well, Canada doesn't recognize that. And the judge said, but Canada signed it. And she said, yes, but Canada signs a lot of things. And at which point the judge said, well, if Canada signs it, I'm going to have to take it into account. So I was actually acquitted, and that was my defense. In fact, it was probably one of the funniest court hearings I ever had, because I was on trial for 3 counts of mischief, which doesn't sound like anything serious, but you can get life imprisonment for mischief. And I had a jury of 12 people, and my lawyer came in and he looked at the jury and he said, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to say that we didn't do what we're charged with. We're going to say we did exactly what we're charged with. We're proud to have done it, and we intend to do it again. And that was our opening defense, and we won the case. Japan is illegal what they're doing in the Southern Ocean. They've been condemned by the International Court of Justice that has ruled that their activities in the Southern Ocean are against the law. The Australian Federal Court has ruled that it's in contempt of their court. They fined them $1 million, which Japan refuses to pay. The International Whaling Commission has prohibited them killing whales in the Southern Ocean. But Japan ignores everything because Japan's attitude is, we'll do whatever we want, because we're a powerful economic entity and nobody's going to tell us what to do. So that's their attitude. And they'll even abuse that attitude by using their authority to put me on the Interpol list, to get the United States courts to come against us. It's amazing. You know, when I went into court in Canada, in Seattle actually, we went to court, and the Japanese came into court and said they want an injunction to stop Sea Shepherd from interfering with their whaling in the Southern Ocean. The judge in the lower court was Judge Jones, Richard Jones. He's actually Quincy Jones's brother. But Richard Jones says, no, you come into my courtroom with dirty hands, with unclean hands. You're in contempt of the Australian court. You come into my courtroom and tell me to give an injunction against you. And he says, no, you're not going to get it. Your request is denied. So we all went prepared to go to the campaign, and then our ships had left in December. After our ships left, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in the United States overturned the judge and gave them their injunction without any explanation at all. And then we went down, we interfered. We got charged with 22 counts of contempt of a U.S. federal judge. We came back and we went on trial. I was charged with the 21 counts also, and we had 10 days in the courtroom, and the judge ruled we were not guilty. That was fine. A year later, the Ninth Circuit Court reversed that decision and said they're guilty. Now, the judge who heard the hearing, who listened to the evidence, he finds us not guilty. 3 judges who weren't even there, never heard it, just reversed it, said no, they're guilty. Now, who are those 3 judges? Judge Kaczynski is a rabid anti-environmentalist, always very right-wing on the side of that. The only Japanese-American judge in the country was the other judge, and the 3rd judge was a Mormon. You know, we got the 3 most hostile judges on the Ninth Circuit Court, and there was not. They didn't pay attention to the evidence. They didn't care about the thing. Japan wanted us stopped, and they're going to do what Japan wanted them to do. But so the Sea Shepherd USA had to respect that injunction and not get involved. But Sea Shepherd's global, so the rest of them went. Now Japan's trying to say to the U.S. courts, you have to stop Sea Shepherd Global. And the judge now is saying, well, I have no authority over the Netherlands in Antarctica. What do you expect of me? But now they're trying to say, yes, but the U.S. has authority. Paul Watson could stop them if he wanted to, but he's not stopping them. So therefore, he should be charged if the Netherlands or Australia or anything does anything. This is a kind of manipulation of the law that they're trying to do. But now we've countersued them, and we're fighting the Japanese. We want them to turn over, because they brought it into court. We want them to turn over all of their papers on their whaling activities, all of their subsidies, and they're saying, no, you can't have them. Now the judge has ruled to Japan, you give them the papers, that's part of the deposition, you have to give them it. And the Japanese are saying, no way. So now we're in a position where the court actually may find the Japanese in contempt and fine them. So it's been a very interesting battle in the courtrooms in the United States. My attitude has always been one of biocentrism. That is that thousands of years ago, the human species decided we're better than everything else. We're dominant. Whatever we want, we can do, and everything. And we're not even animals. We're like gods. You know, like God made us. We're different than everything else. We can do whatever we want. And I reject all of that. As a biocentric, I believe that we're part of everything, and therefore our lives are just are not any more important than the life of a whale or a fish or anything like this. That they can live without us, but we can't live without them. We need them. They need us, and therefore it's the interdependence of all species that makes this planet thrive and survive. So I've rejected all the major religions in the world because of one very important distinction, and that is that every single one of them puts human beings at the center of everything, the center of creation, that we've manufactured gods, that we can put our words into the mouth of those gods to tell us what everything should be. The only spirituality that I actually recognize is that of indigenous peoples around the world who still see life from a biocentric point of view, who understand this thing called the continuum, that, you know, as time flows and people flow with it, they pass on to the next generation, You know, for instance, if you take your average American or your average European and you say to them, I'm talking about the average person, you say, what was your great-great-great-great-great-grandmother's name? The year's 1500. What was her name? What did she do? I don't know. Well, why do you expect me to know that? But I can go into the outback in Australia and ask an Aboriginal that question, or I can go into Amazonia and ask a Kayapo that question, or I can go into the Iroquois and ask that question. I get an answer. They know who that was, and they know what they did. And that's because they know where they came from. And because they know where they came from, they know who they are. And because they know who they are, they know where they're going. So 500 years from now, the baby that's born 500 years from now is part of their reality. We don't give much thought to that in our anthropocentric society. So we've lost the flow. We're no longer in part of the continuum. We're just drifting through time without any roots. And so I guess that's really my outlook on spirituality. But I also believe that humans cannot connect with the rest of nature from an anthropocentric point of view. And when people say, well, you know, it's hard to really put it into things, but if people say that, you know, I'm here to save the planet, I said, how are you going to do that? And they said, well, because I'm in tune with the planet, I'm going to save the planet. I said, the planet doesn't need any saving from you. The planet is going to be the planet. This is our movement. Our movement is to save ourselves from ourselves, you know, because, and the reason I never get depressed and the reason I'm always optimistic is because I know that if we're not successful, that the planet will survive. And I know that in the last 5 major extinction events, the planet has always survived. The Permian extinction event 252 million years ago killed 97% of everything on the planet. 18 to 20 million years, it was back in line. So even in the 6th major extinction event right now, the Anthropocene, 18 to 20 million years from now, be a very nice planet. And that's not a very long time in the terms of the planet. It's a long time for us, but not for the planet. So this has never been about saving the planet. It's about saving humanity from ourselves.